The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is Rob Thiessen with Print Audit Software. I'm going to be taking you through session 1 of a 3-part series looking at the RemoteFleet printer management and product capabilities. And to begin with, we're going to look at an introduction to managed print services. Now, during this presentation, we don't have audio hookups for everybody so that they can ask questions live, but we are offering a chat room in which you can simply type in your request or question, and my colleague, Susan Scurry, who is also on the line, will be taking those questions and then feeding them to me via the webinar so that everybody can hear those questions and hear the response at that time. So I do invite you to access the chat capability on the webinar, GoToWebinar console, and do ask questions as we go along, because we will be stopping to take those questions as we receive them for the most part. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and on behalf of Print Audit Software as well as Sharp Electronics Corporation, we appreciate your time and your interest in these products and capabilities. So I'm going to look at now the introduction to Managed Print Services and RemoteFleet Suite. So to begin with, print management is something that's in the news a lot these days. We're seeing a lot of customer-driven interest in the control capabilities that managed print services offer, control over printer fleets, control over printing. And part of the reason for this is just the general cost associated with printing. It's often regarded as 3 to 5% of total gross sales, as well as the environmental impact, which we're seeing has increased dramatically since the introduction of internet, email, and general office printing. So to begin with, these statistics that you see here speak to the issues that virtually all organizations throughout North America and around the world are facing. And to paraphrase this page, there's a lot of wood being harvested to produce a lot of paper, which is being consumed at an ever-increasing rate by office employees, and the general expense and volumes associated with those office employees is going up, not down, in the modern age. So the paperless office that was often predicted so long ago as a result of computers and so forth really hasn't manifested itself, and we're seeing quite the opposite, that volumes are being driven up. Now, there is a cost difference associated with different printers in each and every customer environment, and this last statistic here really makes that point, which is it costs $150,000 to fill your car's gas tank with inkjet ink, which is basically makes inkjet ink one of the most costly substances on the planet, and yet we're spraying it all over documents on a daily basis. So these are some of the key thoughts that we go into a customer's environments when we're looking to manage printing in those environments. And what is print management? Well, like the graphic here would suggest, there's really two sides to the print management coin. The first side is the management of printers, and that includes cost per page billing, supplies management, you've got service and help desk issues, uptime issues, and of course asset acquisition. These are all areas of printer management. They have to do specifically with the assets in the environment, how they're what their capabilities are, and how they're behaving in that environment. Now, the other side, and I would argue equally important, and yet right now for many dealers a completely ignored side of the print management coin, is printing management, and making sure that there's user access controls within the site that help to optimize the ROI on any assets and any equipment. This could include a strategy of volume redirection, or it might also involve asset or expense allocation to different departments or even chargeback to customers and clients for printing. It's very common these days for companies to look for ways to either control printing or to charge back for printing, and printing management tools facilitate that, of course. Now, what are the challenges in the marketplace that most dealers face? Well, sharp dealers are no different than others in the marketplace, and that is that, first of all, it's a mixed environment in just about any client that you go into. It's very rare that you see just one make and model of printer or one manufacturer represented in those environments. Environments with any size at all to them, and that could be 25 or more employees, will have generally a mix of different assets, and dealing with that mix, it becomes a problem because, of course, you need to find tools that are, I guess, make and model or brand agnostic, so that you don't have to worry about, being able to gather information from one type of printer, but the tools you're using don't have good or reliable information on another type of printer. Another challenge is cost increases that are associated with the introduction of color into the environment. Of course, color is one of the main thrusts of the printer and copier business, has been for a while, but there's still resistance on the part of the customers to introduce color across the board in their environment and make it accessible to their users. And that's very simply because they don't trust their users at all times to manage their own usage of that capability. And as it does have an increased cost associated with it, at that point, without the controls in place, oftentimes the customers choose not to have color accessible in their environment. So this is something that providing the printing management capabilities would also alleviate. Finally, there's the burden on the help desk. Gartner estimates that 60% of all help desk calls are associated with printers or printer-related issues. And so dealing with the printers themselves becomes a major task of the help desk, and that detracts from all of the other good work that they do. So this is an opportunity for you as a company to offer your services, your professional services, as a fleet management organization to not only take those help desk issues and run with them, but perhaps even nip them in the bud by proactively maintaining the fleets before they break down and before they incur difficulties. So these are some of the main challenges in the marketplace, and the solution follows, I guess, a sort of a three-pronged approach. And the first part of the solution is understanding the customer's environment. If you don't see what's going on in that customer's environment, well, you'll really just be speaking to industry statistics and anecdotal evidence as to why that customer should, make you a partner in their managed print services package. So use analysis and the data capture capabilities of all of the print audit tools, including the RemoteFleet Facilities Manager, including the assessor, including the rapid assessment key, and so forth, to first of all get an understanding of your customer's current state. With that understanding of the current state, then you can begin to advise your customer on all of those good things like asset allocation or acquisition and printer management, as well as printing management capabilities, which fall along the next two categories, and that is placing rules. Now, with information, of course, we get an understanding of the environment, and at that point, companies could create rules that would be passed down through policy action. So, a memo goes out saying, we'd like you to start duplexing more often. Well, I would argue that that's a good start, but it certainly isn't going to really affect the end user behavior, because in our studies, we see that when you are requesting changes in user behavior, you're really fighting against that behavior, and oftentimes it's a losing battle, and that's because without having something to literally communicate to the users at the time of printing as to how they should be printing that particular job, chances are they'll just do so the way they've always done it. And that's also likely to occur at one of the most convenient printers available to them, and those convenience printers often has the highest costs associated with them, and like those inkjets and the laser printers in the environment. So using printing rules to manage and educate individuals is a great way of literally affecting change in the customer's environment, a change that will get the maximum ROI out of your device placements. Finally, the cost recovery capability is used to charge back or literally transform cost centers into revenue centers wherever possible. And we see a growing number of companies looking for this capability. And those who already are charging for, let's say, copies, but haven't begun to charge for prints, that's low-hanging fruit. It's very, very easy to make the argument that, well, if you're charging for copies, you should be charging for prints, because most of the volumes nowadays that used to go to copiers are simply being printed on MFPs instead of walking up to those devices. So there's a very good argument to be made for increasing the automation of the cost recovery process. Susan, is there a question?
Rob, there's just been a couple of messages that you might be a little bit quiet, and if there's any way you can adjust the volume on your end, that would probably be appreciated.
I'll try to speak a little bit closer to the microphone.
That's quite a bit louder. That's good.
Okay, my apologies, everybody. So the three prongs of the solution and to the challenge in the marketplace for managed print services these days are gaining information accurately and efficiently first and foremost. I think that's number one, because without that you're really not, you're nowhere at that point. If you're not getting information from the customer's environments, there's not much you can do to help except guess at the solutions. Using printing rules then enforces and facilitates the ROI on equipment placements, and of course cost recovery wherever it can be employed and automated is a great way of developing budgets for new equipment, but also anything else that your customers are looking to finance. So let's talk about qualifying customers for print management. I'll be honest with you, it's fairly simple for me. When I talk about the capabilities that printer and printing management offers companies, it really falls to any company that uses printers and printer products can benefit one way or another from the print management strategies that we're discussing in this session today. And that might be a print management strategy that focuses on fleets and maintains uptime. It might be a print strategy that focuses on the users and maximizes ROI and use of the devices. Or it might be a strategy that focuses on charging back for printing. It doesn't really matter. We've got capability for anybody who uses printer products and supplies. Now, these questions on the page here will give you a little bit better idea of which of those three capabilities your customer is best suited for. So once again, virtually anybody using printer products and supplies could benefit from print management. So RemoteFleet has all the tools for your success. RemoteFleet Suite provides pre-sales assessment capabilities that allows you to look at the customer's environment, gain that current state information, and on the basis of that information, provide your customer with detailed reports showing them how a change or an equipment refresh or directing printing within the environment and setting policy for how users should be interacting with those assets. All of this can be derived from the pre-sales assessment. And there's multiple capabilities here, including, as I already mentioned, the Rapid Assessment Key, the RemoteFleet Facilities Manager, in combination with the Assessor program, are really the three main assessment capabilities. Now, once you've moved past the pre-sales assessment, of course, you're going to want to look at ongoing fleet management, and that's where the Facilities Manager really comes in. After the assessment, the same tools that you use to, the ICE application, which was installed in order to track printers under Facilities Manager, could then be just simply maintained in the environment. It could be left in the environment, if you will, and turned into ongoing fleet management. By the same token, if you had used the assessor program right up front and installed the print audit client to the environment, at that point you could simply license it for ongoing printing management and use the rules or the recovery or just the analysis capability on an ongoing basis. All of these pieces flow from one to the other, and there's really no need to remove software or to reinstall. The work that you do to conduct assessments to begin with will flow directly into ongoing printer and printing management in the future. Now, let's talk a little bit about benefits because, of course, you want to know what's in it for you. And MPS strategies, a solid MPS strategy, of course, gives you the site assessment capability in that critical current state environment. It also helps to facilitate the cost per page model, so you can be free to base your MPS billing or your business model on whatever makes most sense to you, whether that's to charge on a cost per page basis and to differentiate between different printers in the environment. That's up to you. It certainly can be done. Whether to charge for supplies or services and that sort of thing, that's also possible. Or maybe you're still looking at a model where you're just selling equipment in the environment and then offering some type of service and supplies packages in addition to the equipment sales. Either way, the capabilities in RemoteFleet will accommodate those different business models. Now, we have this proactive supplies ordering, which suits itself to that supplies billing model. We've got the proactive maintenance capabilities, so smart alerts that tell you when printers are going down in the environment. That's going to help you facilitate that service based on, or the business model based on service. And of course, we give you remote access to the information from literally any location that you have access to the internet. So with internet access, you can gain access to the fleet information. Now, the device use goes back to the rules, and when we're talking about rules, we're talking about migration strategies, we're talking about IT help desk strategies, we're talking about green initiatives, we're talking about security rules that can help to enhance document security in the environment, and that's a big issue these days with some of the compliance and regulation information that's coming from, being passed into law now. So this can ultimately, this MPS strategy that combines, the RemoteFleet printer management tools as well as the RemoteFleet printing management tools can become a significant competitive differentiator for you in the marketplace. And ultimately, it's going to help you increase the customer's ROI, and anytime you can do that, that's good for business. So that's really the benefits to the dealers. And essentially, what you're doing is you're using print management to both grow your customer base and to increase sales in your current customers, because as we all know, it's cheaper to maintain or enhance sales within a current customer environment than it is to go out and find a brand new customer. And that's a big part of this strategy, as we'll see as we look into the individual products in the second session, which will take place tomorrow at the same time. But at this point, I'll take a quick look at the benefits to the customers, because, of course, they're the ones that are going to decide whether or not they want you to manage their environment. And the reason they would want that is because, of course, you can bring them improved service and supplies ordering for their fleet. You'll also be able to enhance the uptime or reduce downtime on the equipment that's operating in those environments and increase the productivity on that equipment. Now, most customers that we talk to want more information. They're interested in knowing who's printing what, where, when, and how, and that's the real key to the printing management side, is getting that user information, and that's the big differentiator between the RemoteFleet product and other systems in the marketplace, such as WebJet Admin or PrintFleet, FM Audit. Those are all fleet management capabilities that don't have any user management features. So the detailed tracking of users and output control in the environment is what's going to allow your customers to understand what their current state and what their potential future state could look like. But further to that, we can also help support green policies, as we mentioned, and also support for security and compliance initiatives, which are becoming more and more important to your customers. Now, let's talk a little bit about vertical market appeal, because as we mentioned, the RemoteFleet suite includes 3 components. They are analysis, rules, and recovery. And I've created kind of zones of influence here to show how the vertical market appeal kind of follows in 3 categories. You've got, first of all, legal, which is solidly entrenched in the cost recovery marketplace. They're interested in charging back to customers and clients for printing, and that's certainly one of the capabilities that we offer in the Print Audit 6 suite. Now, real estate is another very common area of interest for cost recovery. These 2 vertical markets rarely engage in the rules, because frankly, if you can charge for printing, who cares where people print? And rationalizing doesn't become an issue at that point. Security could be for legal and that sort of thing, but it's really when we get into architects and engineers that we start to see some overlap. There's some recovery capabilities there. They do want to charge for printing and plotting, and we can accommodate all wide format devices as well as small format. And alongside the recovery capability for architects and engineers, they're often interested in green policies and in rationalization of some of the printing, making sure that their users aren't printing off emails, 18-page emails when all they wanted was the first page. So architects and engineers often look for the cost reduction capability as well as the cost recovery capability. Another area where there's a large amount of overlap is in education. We see higher education looking at the cost recovery capability all the time, whereas K through 12, they're looking to rationalize printing. They don't necessarily have the ability to charge students or teachers or users for printing. So what they want to do is start migrating jobs towards the print and copy centers, and they want to start, messaging the faculty and staff regarding rational use of the devices in the environment. So you can see these 2 bubbles, the recovery bubble and the rules bubble, overlap with the architects and engineers and the education. Where we see rules almost exclusively being used is in areas such as healthcare. Healthcare is a very big vertical market for rules-based printing capabilities. There's a lot of environments where a multitude of users have access to a large number of different assets, and the choices that they make about where to print each and every job have a big impact on the bottom line. And of course, healthcare is an area where cost cutting is occurring. Another area is local and federal governments. This is, of course, an ability to place rules around printing. There is very strong willingness to govern users in these environments and make sure that they're printing appropriately. And once again, the rules is a very, very strong product in these environments. And finally, this covers a broad spectrum of business. We've got small to medium business and enterprise businesses, and they are fairly focused on the rules at this point. And as you can appreciate, this is probably the biggest opportunity in the marketplace. The small to medium and enterprise-sized businesses represent the vast majority of customers out there. And this is the area that we're very focused on when it comes to rules-based printing. Now, you'll notice that all of this is encompassed with the analysis capability, and both the recovery and the rules bubbles fit inside the analysis bubble, and that's because the analysis module or analysis capability comes with any purchase of the RemoteFleet suite. So it doesn't matter whether you're buying for recovery purposes or for rules-based printing, you will also receive analysis with that capability. So I hope that's clear to everybody how the printing management tools break down. We're going to go into a much larger discussion about the individual products in tomorrow's session. I also want to mention that, of course, in all of these vertical markets, fleet management is also a strong consideration, because in all of these markets, people are using printer products and multifunction products that require service and supplies and maintenance. And so it goes without saying that all of these vertical markets have opportunities for fleet management. So I want to end the presentation portion with a little bit of a discussion of different experiences that we've had. And we've got a lot of testimonials on our website from customers and dealers alike that have used the software and have seen dramatic results in their environment. We had one dealer who began using the RemoteFleet product, and within the first couple of months realized that they had been missing roughly 200 printers across the customer sites that they were in. It wasn't all at one customer site or another, but across every customer site that they had forgotten, literally forgotten, about 200 printers that were under contract and were missing all of the meters for those printers. Just by adding those printers to their monthly billing, they increased their revenues by $8,000 a month. So that in itself, I can assure you, more than paid for the cost of the facilities manager capabilities. But it goes on from there, because of course they then began to save all kinds of man hours in terms of data transmission, in terms of follow-ups with customers due to lack of reporting, and then just the maintenance within those sites was dramatically improved because of smart alerting and access to information. So there's so many ways in which dealers and customers benefit from the fleet management tools. It's hard to outline them all here. The other case study that I wanted to mention was at a university where printing was literally getting out of control, and the users had complete open access to the printers via certain public access computers in the environment. And by simply placing quotas on the students, they decreased their waste printing, what they were considering waste printing, by roughly 90%. And so their costs went down dramatically, and this was in a library, of course, and where there's not a lot of funding and so forth available for free printing. Even though they didn't charge, they were able to reduce their exposure to cost dramatically, and that was just through the implementation of quotas on the students. So these are ways in which print audit has been used both on the printer management side and on the printing management side to provide dramatic results to both dealers and customers. And we invite you to explore the possibilities for your own company, because this is an area that is going to grow dramatically over the next few years. And as it does, you're going to find customers are demanding these capabilities. And I draw the analogy where, at this point, if you were offering an alternate product, such as a car, if you were selling cars to customers, the equivalent would be selling your customers cars that have accelerator pedals, but no steering and no brakes. It wouldn't be a smart idea to drive a car off a lot that, of course you can accelerate down the road, but you have no control over. And offering your customers multifunction devices and printer fleets or inkjet printers at every desktop, or even just at a minority of the desktops, this is, much akin to providing, the vehicle without the controls. Vehicle with an accelerator, but no brake and no steering. So start incorporating those elements of control into your customers' environments, and you're going to see a dramatic turnaround in the effectiveness of your managed print services strategies. All right, I'm going to go to the phones now, and I'm going to ask you to ask any questions that you have at this point. I'd be happy to take you into a look of the software if you'd like. We can look at sample reports. We can look at the interface. You tell me.
There was one question in the queue just asking whether it's possible to get a hard copy of this presentation, and we can provide a link after this presentation to everyone who attended so they can download a copy.
Absolutely, and along the lines of what Susan was mentioning, this information, and in fact, probably what we'll do is put together a little bit of a video summary of these sessions as we go along, and this will all be available at the RemoteFleet website, and we'll be following up with all the individuals that have been in attendance on these sessions in order to provide them with information that's been shown in these sessions. Any other questions? Surprising that there aren't more questions. We've usually had the first sessions raise a lot of questions in the past, and oftentimes, those questions are really along the lines of what is happening now, what do you see as the major trends in managed print services and that sort of thing. And it's funny because where I see companies who haven't engaged in managed print services before but are anxious to do so, we see them, of course, focusing on the printer management side. And those companies who have been in managed print services for a period of time and are already managing fleets of printers within their customers' environments, those are the companies that are really starting to move to the next level, and that's the management of printing. And the reason they're doing so is because they recognize that by managing printing in their current customer base, they can often increase the volumes to their managed printers by twofold or even fourfold at times. We've seen incredible increases in volumes to multifunction devices as a result of rules-based printing.
Rob, we do have a couple questions in the queue. The first is a question about how much it costs.
Well, we're going to talk more about the products themselves and how they're licensed in the following sessions. This may sound a little salesy, but it's absolutely true. The question is not how much these tools cost, it's how much they save you and your customers, because what we find is the average ROI on print management strategies within customer environments for things like redirection of jobs to more cost-effective devices, increased use of duplexing, control over color and that sort of thing. We see the benefits of that type of product paying for itself in roughly 3 months. That seems to be the sweet spot in just about all of the ROI calculations we do. And as a result of that, our company has actually offered an ROI satisfaction guarantee, or an ROI guarantee, which says that if your customer doesn't feel they've received the return on investment for our software within 12 months, following rules-based printing practices or cost recovery practices, then we'll refund their money. It's as simple as that. And that is a guarantee that we offer direct to the customer. You're not responsible for that guarantee. You're not going to have to give the money back, is what I'm saying. So as a company, we're definitely putting our money where our mouth is, and that's why I feel confident in explaining to you that this software pays for itself. And you're going to find that in virtually any circumstance you go into.
Rob, we have another request for you just to check your mic again, because you're sounding a little bit quiet again. And I also wanted to remind people that for specific pricing questions, they'll need to get pricing through Sharp. The next question was, is analysis available without the other modules?
Yes, it is. So analysis can be purchased as a standalone capability. It wouldn't allow you to interfere in the printing process or restrict anybody from printing. But just to give you a quick rundown of what analysis offers, there's 35 pieces of information available on every print job tracked by our system under analysis tracking. The 35 pieces of information include a tremendous wealth of user data, also workflow data, including the programs that are printing, the time of day, and so on and so forth. So analysis provides full transparency to the printing that's going on in the environment, and then whether or not you add rules or recovery will of course depend on whether or not you want to start to intervene in the printing process in one way or another. Analysis would not allow you to intervene unless you did so through simply policy and directives within the organization.
There is another question from John, and he's wondering what if another print monitoring system is already in place, for example, RemoteFleet. How does RemoteFleet integrate with the other systems?
Well, there is no integration per se. If you were to run our information collection engine, you'd have to do so, I believe, on a separate computer. You wouldn't want to run our collection engine from the same computer that's running the data collection engine or data collection agent or whatever it's called for RemoteFleet. You'd want to have those on separate computers, but for the most part, there would be no integration, but there wouldn't be any conflict either. Now, the customer may not be too happy about the doubling up of information gathering tools because there is some taxation of the bandwidth in the environment as a result of scanning the IP addresses periodically. And so during those scan intervals, you will be using up bandwidth in the environment, not to a large degree on the part of information collection engine or the RemoteFleet capability, but at that point you're certainly doubling up, if you will, on the amount of times that information is being scanned and tracked.
We have another question from John, and he was asking, should Sharp dealers buy all of the print audit products through Sharp now?
Well, I would say yes, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, the RemoteFleet product and the RemoteFleet brand is going to, I think, gain a lot of strength for Sharp dealers. There's some advantages to using the RemoteFleet capability over just coming direct to us for the facilities manager, and those include the access to a free 60-day assessment capability using FM. So whether or not there's a price break, I'm not actually sure, and once again, you'll have to go to Sharp for total pricing on both the RemoteFleet Facilities Manager capability as well as the RemoteFleet analysis rules and recovery capability. But you do get access to an assessment capability which is an advantage over others in the marketplace. And something to note, and I know there's a concern on this by dealers, the RemoteFleet site is not feeding up to Sharp Electronics Corporation. There will be no access by Sharp Electronics to your data. So even though you're working through Sharp Electronics for the RemoteFleet capability, they do not see any of your information. So don't let that be an inhibitor to you. On the print audit side, or on the analysis rules and recovery side, there is definitely a price difference and a price advantage to working through Sharp rather than to coming to us directly. And you'll just have to investigate what that price advantage is. So to answer your question, I think, yeah, there's enough advantages going with the Sharp product that we're really intending to make it something that you want to engage in over our own direct offering. Are there any other questions?
That's the last question in the queue right now. Oh, we have one more from John again, and he's asking if Sharp is going to be providing support.
Now, There will be support from Sharp, but Sharp is not responsible for providing support. So it will still be Print Audit that provides the main support for the products, and so you will be coming to us and working through us on the support, the technical aspects, but there are a number of elements of sales support and a certain degree of tech support that will also be contributed by Sharp Electronics Corporation. A little vague there, I realize, but the bottom line is no, you won't be left to be supported by Sharp. You will still have Print Audit as a company behind you. Any other questions? Well, as I mentioned, the next 2 days we'll see another 2 sessions. They'll take place at the same time, and we did an introduction to Managed Print Services today. Tomorrow we're going to go into a little bit more information on the products themselves, how they work, what they're capable of doing, what the value proposition of both fleet and printing management are for your customers. And that's going to be in session 3, of course. So please do join us tomorrow at the same time, wherever you might be calling in from, and join the next sessions, because I think you'll get a good understanding of what's being offered here and how to incorporate that into your own businesses. So unless there's any other questions, Susan?
No, there's nothing in the queue now.
All right. Well, on behalf of Print Audit, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and also to thank you on behalf of Sharp Electronics Corp for your interest in the remote fleet capability. And I look forward to speaking with you again. There is a telephone number on the screen right now that you can contact us for sales and technical support. Please don't hesitate to give us a call. And then you can also see there that there's a website. And Susan, was there a change to this website? I wanted to just double check with you on that.
Yeah, I actually corrected it on this presentation, so that website is correct, that address.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Look at the website here for better information on the remote fleet products. I bid you a good day and good luck with your sales.